I was once a huge Crash Bandicoot fan. I was probably the world's biggest Crash fan. Until last night. I decided that I wanted to play Crash Tag Team Racing, as it was a classic from my childhood and a game which had brought me much joy. I started the game up and realised that there was already a save file on it from 2009 with my name on it. Not wanting to tamper with my old save, I started a new game. Before I actually started playing the game, I decided to look in my old cheat book for something interesting. Perhaps a cheat that would make the game more fun than it already is. I decided that I would play as the Japanese Crash because of how ridiculous he looks. I put in the code and set out on my adventure. After a while, I got a little bit bored of looking at the deformed Crash and thought that it might be a little bit more funny to see what he would look like if he had another costume on. Could you imagine Japanese Crash, but with Crash's pimp outfit on? That would be epic. Sadly, this was my greatest mistake. I got myself an extra costume and decided to swap into it. Unfortunately, it turns out that it reverts the cheat and you can no longer play as Japanese Crash and you go back to normal. That was quite upsetting to say the least. But you know, I'd already spent my coins now, so I thought I'd just use the costume anyway. Before I accepted the costume change, I noticed that Crash seemed a little bit more stiff and looking off into the distance, sort of to the right and up a little bit. As a little bit of a joke, I turned around as if to look up at what he was looking at too. And that's when I saw it. My Crash Bandicoot doll, which I got when I was very young. I found it quite strange how coincidental that was, so I decided that when I was done playing, I'd take the doll off my wardrobe, clean it up a little bit, and then place it in a more presentable location. I turned back to my game, and I decided that I actually preferred Japanese Crash rather than any of the other costumes. So I went back to select the classic Crash. To my absolute horror, Crash was still staring off into the distance. And the worst part was, he had no eyes. I was shocked, horrified. I had no idea what to do. I quickly tried to exit out of the costume select screen and compose myself. This turned out to be the worst thing I could have done. Crash emerged from the doors and his eyes were still gone. His sickening grin widened as he looked directly into the camera, at me. Slowly, he started to walk towards the camera, and the screen started to tremble and distort. I locked eyes with Crash for a brief moment, and quickly tried to turn off my PS2. The reset button and the eject button weren't functioning. I had to turn the PlayStation off from the back. I looked up at the screen to find it had gone black, and Crash was nowhere to be seen. At this point, my heart was beating out of my chest, and I was gasping for air. However, almost the instant I managed to compose myself, I turned around and saw it. He was there. Just sat there, looking directly at me, with no eyes.